And outside of that, a lot of random shit's gonna happen anyways. So it's
Right.
like you can only prepare so much. I guess just having my finger on the pulse of like everything and like every player. Because I'm in so
Yeah.
many leagues, I have everybody and I go against everybody every week.
How many leagues are you in this year?
It's probably gonna be somewhere between 40 and 60.
When did you start like building the brand?
What's crazy is like it didn't start with it started with content, but Facebook, with the Facebook group.
How many members is this group up to?
Well, I know there's over 100,000.
How much preparation goes into a certain draft, and how long in advance do you prepare for it?
I've been doing mock drafts and real drafts since like February. If you want to just get to like the highest level of like just ultimate resource, it's legit gonna be following me.
What do you think are like some of the top common mistakes like beginners or like regular people make for fantasy football?
Biggest one is trading with emotion.
Going into this NFL season, is there like a one or two like sleeper picks or candidates that you think are gonna have a breakout year?
So I really like
This is Best for Business with your host, Coach C, Chris Sanders.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the channel. Another bonus episode for Best for Business. Now, I just said it before this interview. To me, this one's crazy. My first year in fantasy football, I was like a freshman or sophomore. I didn't really know much. A few of the wrestlers asked me if I wanted to join a league, so I would go on social media. I would ask questions. No, I didn't know really much. I want to thank this guy for everything over these years. Fantasy football hustler, man. Thank you for doing this.
hell yeah, man. Thanks for having me on.
So for you, what was that first introduction to fantasy football?
So kind of crazy how it worked out. I was into football. I mean, I think, how old was I? 20 years old, maybe. I'd gotten into some trouble and I started working a random job, and it was this random person. I literally can't even remember his name. And he was like, dude, he was like, we got this fantasy football league. And it's like already after the season started. It was like a couple days after the season started, on the Thursday game had already passed. And like, dude, we want to do this other draft. You want to get in with us? We need one more person. I don't even remember who I drafted. My head was in such a different like part of the world at that point, but I got introduced to it, and they played on Yahoo, and kind of the rest was history. Every single year after that, I had to commission all the leagues because like none of my friends knew what the fuck fantasy football was. So I had to create the leagues and stuff. And like a lot of random people over the years were in that home league. It was the San Diego Green Bowl initially, and now it's called the Hustler Green Bowl. And we've only taken 1 year off since '07, and been going ever since.
So when did you officially like start taking fantasy football serious?
I want to say probably 2010. So in it for a few years, before then, but 2010, that's when I'm in multiple leagues. Just taking commissioning to the next level, trying to mess with the roster settings and the scoring settings, things like that, really trying to create my own, like experience for this league that we had. So I'd say 2010, and that was the first year that people started asking me for advice as well.
Really?
And I gave someone championship advice, and it was the exact opposite. He had two players in mind. I gave him the player, and he was like, man, should I start that player? Like, I really want to start this guy. I was like, man, don't go against what I'm saying. Trust me. And I'm pretty sure I think it was Julio Jones. I don't remember who the other one was, but yeah, he starts him, then he wins. And then like, ever since then, he's someone who we pretty much only talk during fantasy season, but he's always still asking me questions and shit.
And then when did you start like building the brand for fantasy football? Whether it was knowledge, giving advice, the podcast, all that.
So what's crazy is like it didn't start with it started with content, but Facebook, with the Facebook group. And there was no Facebook fantasy groups at this time. This is like 2017, I think. And so I just I wanted to create like something very, very like basic, but like easy for fantasy football. And it was fantasy football advice. And it was for experts, gurus, and beginners. I don't know why I put that on there, but just wanted to kind of include everybody in there. And the first couple years, it was like, maybe one person joins every week or so, maybe the first like 2 years.
Yeah.
And It was me like literally answering everybody's questions. I would make a post like every single Wednesday and was like start sit thread for week 2, start sit for week 3. And that was my content, was
Mhm.
literally making a Facebook post in this group, not knowing why I was doing it necessarily, but that's kind of how it all started. And then in COVID, that's when I actually started the podcasting and YouTubing and full force since then.
So how many members is this group up to? Because I know I'm in that group.
I know there's over a
Oh,
100,000.
wow. So like, do you know like the average of like how you said, what is it like? You'll be lucky if one guy like joins a year. So like, when did it like really skyrocket the group?
Well, the year before COVID, it started taking off. We got to like 6,000. So it went like first year, I don't know, maybe there was like 800 that joined. And then like the next year, I think it got up to 2,000. Then the next year after that, it got up to like 6,000. And then
Mhm.
COVID came. And like in 2 months, it went from like 6,000 to 20,000.
Wow.
And like it just grew crazy during COVID. So I'm sure a shitload of people started playing fantasy
Yeah.
football for the very first time in during 2020. And yeah, and then I think it went from 20,000 to 50,000, and then like I think another year and a half, and then it got to 100,000.
Wow. So walk me through. You're about to start a fantasy football draft. You get whatever spot it is. How much preparation goes into a certain draft, and how long in advance do you prepare for it?
Well, how about I'll give advice for like a normal person,
Yeah.
because I've been doing mock drafts and real drafts since like February. So
Mhm.
like if we equate it to like anything, I've been in the batting cage long before people even started thinking about
Yeah.
getting into the batting cage. And but for a regular person, you do 3 or 4 mock drafts, I feel like you're good. You really
Mhm.
just need to learn like the general consensus of where certain people go, players that you're wanting to target. And outside of that, a lot of random shit's gonna happen anyways. So it's
Right.
like you can only prepare so much, but I feel like you have to have your finger on the general pulse, of just like how the first 10 rounds are gonna go.
So when somebody wants to first do fantasy football, even like a normal person, like you said, what do you feel like what tools or resources like really could help somebody?
So if you want to just get to like the highest level of like just ultimate resource, it's legit going to be following me, because
Mhm.
like there's a lot of resources out there where you could get access to certain videos or certain articles or rankings or whatever. But like the way that I do it is literally one-on-one, like consultations. Like I
Mhm.
literally like I'm a fantasy football consultant.
Yeah.
Like that's what my whole business is kind of based around. And so that would be what I say. You want to just
Mhm.
jump into the big leagues, just go sign up with me. It's 420crew.com, and
I'll
there's
put
all
it in the
different types
description
of
below.
levels.
I'll put it in
Yep,
the
all type
description.
all types of different levels of access and all types of things like that. If someone doesn't want to pay, you really just want, I mean, the Facebook group that we have, if you type in fantasy football on Facebook and you look at the groups, like it's literally the top one. I'm pretty sure it's Patrick Mahomes. I think that's like the background picture or something. But YouTube, I mean, that's a great place to go for free. Check out a bunch of content, a bunch of videos. And I mean, I'm not just saying my videos, but like I'm sure hundreds, if not thousands of people offering up fantasy football advice. One thing I would say is if you follow too many people, you're probably just going to confuse yourself. Like
Mhm.
really like find someone that you like personality wise, someone that like is good at what they do. And that's what I'd say. Just like focus on finding some like one person that's good and like rock with that channel.
Now, I tell you every year, I owe you so much. I remember, I think I want to say I joined the group and then I saw you were live, so I started joining. But I remember like my first and second year when I was in a bunch of leagues, I would make burner accounts just to comment like a bunch of questions because I would feel guilty. But like you said, like you've helped so many of us. But one thing I'm actually curious, do you have a favorite NFL team?
No, not anymore. So it used to be the Chargers, but when
Okay.
they left San Diego, it was like the owner, he was such a bitch. When the way that they left, they were like, if you guys don't vote for the
Yeah.
Chargers stadium to go on the taxes, we're leaving and we're going to LA. And everyone was like, well, screw you then, get out of here. And because Chargers they're just cursed, man.
Mhm.
I've said it before, I'll say it again. They have a curse. They're never gonna win a championship. Like this curse until the ownership is like gone and there's a complete change of philosophy and everything. Like he's the reason for their curse.
So when you were a Chargers fan, one of the things I find when I play fantasy football with people is like they don't like to like I don't want to say bet, but pick against their teams. So
Yeah.
like, how was it for you as a Chargers fan? Did you like picking the guys against the Chargers week by week?
Well, and a lot of times I was on the Chargers side of things, and then
Mhm.
sometimes it screwed me over, and like that's the thing that like sucks. And so I feel like one of the reasons why a lot of people follow me is my unbiased opinions, because
Nice.
like I'm not like there's certain guys who, when I would just listen to more fantasy podcasts, guys are gonna like just ram their team players, whoever's their team is, ram those
Yeah.
players right down your throat. And it's like sooner or later you just realize they're just giving you opinions based on who they like, and it may or may not be the best. It's just who they like. And so like if your thoughts align with them, maybe that's cool. But I don't know. I try to pick the best player regardless of any kind of
Nice.
affiliation anywhere.
Yeah, I'm a Vikings fan, so I never had hope like my whole life so far, so I don't need to worry about that. But one thing I'm actually curious, like everything you've learned in fantasy football and everything, all the information you're giving now, what do you think are like some of the top common mistakes like beginners or like regular people make for fantasy football?
The biggest one is trading with emotion.
Hmm.
There's so many people who like maybe your player has a bad week that you're not even thinking about trading them, but like he has a bad week and you're like, I just want to get rid of this
Yeah.
guy. Or like the flip side of things where like you want to get a player so bad that you'll like overpay, for that person. And I see a lot of people, they shoot themselves in the foot and they make their journey harder because of making just foolish trades, like just on emotion.
Yeah, I hear like once a week. I don't know if you heard. There's a wrestler. He's in TNA. He was in WWE. Sammy Callahan. And
Okay.
my first league I was in with him. I was in. He was in there, and I didn't know anything, and he took advantage of that. I remember he messaged me. He asked me about a trade. Everybody's like, "Don't listen to him." And then he was talking about sending me like an 8x10 or a figure, and like I did the trade. I went downhill from there, and every night when I play video games, they always remind him about them. So yeah, yeah, I feel that. Now, let me ask you, you said in February you start doing mock drafts, but when do you like officially lock in for setting lineups for the weeks to come?
That's not going to be literally until the week of. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no point. Like, I know there's people who it just messes with your brain. Like I really try not to like focus on who I'm going to start or sit until that week after
Mhm.
Labor Day. Like then we'll start looking,
Yeah.
that Monday or that Tuesday right after Labor Day. Yeah, then we'll start looking at it. But outside of that, it, just do another draft, get into another league,
Mhm.
in that time versus like trying to tweak this one team because moving people in and out of the starts and sits like 5 weeks in advance, it's
Yeah.
just to amuse yourself at that point, anyways.
How has, in your eyes, fantasy football evolved over the years?
Dude, it's like going from being something that only closet nerd sports people knew about to
Yeah.
like everybody knowing about it. And there's still room to grow. Like I know there's hundreds of millions of like leagues out there, but one day there'll be hundreds of billions of
Mhm.
leagues out there because every year there's more and more people learning about this. And it's like like even my son, like who's like he's like 7 years old, like wants to be in it. It's like I want to get in the league, and
Yeah.
like he doesn't even watch football, but
Yeah.
just like he knows that it's something fun, and a lot of it's all about the camaraderie, with your friends, coworkers, whatever.
So when you're giving advice, I know you said before you have certain notifications on for certain reporters and things like that, but like when you give advice and ideas and tips to people, how much preparation do you do or like what do you do for like to do your research?
I mean, it's literally watching like every single game. Like on
Mhm.
Sunday, like we're watching Sunday Ticket. I got all 8 games, up. I mean, 9 games if there's 9 games. So really being on it as far as that, like just being in the know about every piece of news that's out there when the games happen, everybody's stats, from all these games. By the end of Sunday, I'll already have it soaked in, at least for like, guys who actually matter.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of me just I'm in so many leagues that really it's me doing the preparation work for myself to
Yeah.
handle my own leagues. And then it's like everybody else's questions just kind of come in addition to that. And yeah, it's just, I guess just having my finger on the pulse of like everything and like every player. Cause I'm in so
Yeah.
many leagues, I have everybody and I go against everybody every week. And that's what it seems like.
How many leagues are you in this year, you think?
So it's probably going to be somewhere between 40 and 60. And that's
Uh,
not including best ball.
yeah. Do you sleep or no?
I sleep. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to record videos like all night and edit
Mhm.
videos all night. And I've since stopped.
Yeah. Now I'm curious, going into this NFL season, is there like a one or two like sleeper picks or candidates that you think are gonna have a breakout year?
So I really like Zamir White. I feel like a lot of people are kind of, getting on that train. So you might not be able to get him as late as you
Yeah.
like could before. Najee, I know a lot of people's hating on him for whatever
Yeah.
reason. You're able to get him like as cheap as you've been able to like ever get him. So
Hmm.
like just someone super, super late. Curtis Samuel. So
Hmm.
he's someone going like double digit rounds, and there's just not a lot of competition for targets out there. So I think he's gonna do enough to be like a good flex play, and you're getting
Nice.
him like double digit rounds.
Yeah.
So super, super late. And let's see, who's another maybe running back super late. Or how about another wide receiver super late? Josh Palmer.
Hmm.
Like Quentin Johnston, like he sucks, man.
Yeah.
Like can't catch. I'm probably gonna have him in a couple leagues as like a dart throw, but I feel like Palmer's the guy, like
Hmm.
over there. He's already got the rapport with Herbert. Herbert's a little banged up right now, but I feel like you get him like damn near the last round of your draft. So it's like a super good dart throw at the end of the draft.
And then for you, like you said, the content is huge. So, especially in what you're doing, how big is content? How much of an impact does it have on you? And like you said, like you want people to go to you. What do you think is different from you and compared to like anybody else who does this?
So I have the most interactive YouTube channel around for fantasy
Hmm.
football. Like most of the things that I do are question and answer sessions, and I'm literally the content is people asking questions and me answering it.
Right.
So I mean, I'd say that's why people would want to come to me versus like anywhere else.
Hmm.
You're not. I don't do rankings and stuff. Like I spend time answering people's questions versus like spending like 10 hours a week like trying to do rankings and
Yeah.
stuff. I really don't like that. So don't come to me if you want me to give you a list of like 100 ranks like per
Yeah.
week. But if you want to know who should you start out of the 4 or 5 options, you have in these 1 or 2 spots, like that's why you want to come to me. Cause like I don't care about making these blanket lists for everybody. Like I care
Hmm.
about helping people who follow me. I care about helping them with their one individual league that may even have some weird ass settings,
Yeah.
that no one's making rankings for.
Nice, nice. Now, I know you said it, you love content. I love that about you. If you were to go to your YouTube channel, whether it's an interview, something you did for fantasy football, do you have like a favorite video on that channel?
So there's so many. Like I like the interviews with Ricky Williams. He's been on a handful of
Nice.
times. So if you're like into sports and weed at all,
Hmm.
and you know who Ricky Williams is, like those are good listens. Um, Let me see what else. You could go back like James Coe and Adam Rank. Those guys were fun guys to talk to. So they're some of the bigger fantasy football analysts,
Nice.
around, and they're like sports nerd, wrestling nerds, and
Love
so
that.
it's fun to go like it was funny to hear like some of Adam Rank's like behind the scenes stories
Hmm.
and I
Now,
got
what
and I got him on there.
what do you think has been the biggest challenge of doing what you do?
Growing while there's so many people that are like there's so many things that are out there that people can consume content wise.
Right.
So I try to not focus on everybody else out there, but it's kind of tough, like not thinking about that because like people could watch anything instead of me. They could be
Right.
watching Mr. Beast videos,
Yeah.
for all
Yeah.
I know. I mean, our people are older, a lot of
Mhm.
my audience seems like they're in the 30s, 40s, 50s,
Nice.
but still, like, I mean, just literally anything that is out there content wise, like people could be watching instead of me. So that's why I like to be interactive, with people. Cause I mean, I feel like this is the wave of how people like look at all the streamers that are out there. Like
Right. Yeah.
people stay at home. They don't like, they're not going out socially as much as they are. Like, this is like the
The
new
life.
wave of social interaction.
Yeah. Now it's been crazy. I remember when I first started watching you, and even now, like sitting there waiting for a timer for you to start streaming, but then you hear like Shane McMahon's "Here Comes the Money." Oh, you didn't know all that stuff. So, like, when did your love for pro wrestling start?
Oh, 1998.
Wow.
So I did not find out about wrestling until 1997, and we
Wow.
had this family reunion in Arizona, and like so parts of the family that I only saw like kind of randomly,
Mm,
and they were like, "We're getting out of here. We're gonna go watch a wrestling show." And I was like, "Can I go with you guys? I don't want to be here. Like, I want to go with
nice.
you guys."
Yeah.
And they're watching Survivor Series 1997.
Oh
So
yeah.
I didn't even know what I was in store for.
Yeah.
Then literally the first, anything that I saw involving wrestling was the Montreal screw job.
Oh yeah.
So it's just like pretty iconic. And then like I was in like fifth grade, I think,
Wow.
fifth grade at that time.
Yeah.
And so going into sixth grade, I mean, 98, a lot of stuff was happening, but like seventh grade, 1998, 1999, that run, like that full blown, hardcore wrestling fan after that.
Oh, I love that. Now, when we go back to fantasy football, do you have like a favorite app you like to use, or not even like app as well as like a setting, whether it's a dynasty league, a flex, something like that?
Well, how about the app first, Sleeper? Like
Yeah.
nobody don't use NFL or Yahoo or ESPN. Like the main reason why I
Hmm.
love Sleeper over all of them is Sleeper is a fantasy football company. Like their business is that app
Okay.
and everything that's involved with that app. And they actually make improvements like every single year and changes every single year to kind of improve the experience. Yahoo, this is just a way for them to sell ads.
Hmm.
They're not really making a bunch of changes like every single year to improve it. ESPN, like, I know they do like a whole 24-hour marathon or whatever, on ESPN
Yeah.
to kind of promote the app. But out of everything that ESPN does, the fantasy football app is like this much,
Yeah.
of it. Same with the NFL. Like the NFL app, it's like this much of what the NFL, does. So that's why I like Sleeper. And if you're a degenerate like me and in like dozens of leagues, like you can't use those other ones. You have to create like multiple accounts and all these kind of workarounds just to be able to feed your addiction.
So I do the 40 to 60 leagues, they're all on sleeper?
Yep.
Wow. So to go with that, like what is your favorite style of league?
So I love leagues that have IDP included, where we get the defensive players in there.
Nice.
It's super fun, and it unlocks an element of fantasy football that I don't even think people realize like how much it like changes things around.
Right,
Because
right.
when you start adding defensive players in the mix, the player pool opens. You do have to learn more players. And I know for some people that's like a big issue, for them. You got to learn a whole new 100 players or whatever. But once you learn even half of those players, because you're not going to draft them all, it's
Hmm.
the same thing. Like you just have to go back to when you didn't really know fantasy football and all the offensive players. You
Yeah.
scour the waiver wire, you do the same kind of things, but it's defense. It's a lot easier to trade because there's way more people like in the mix. And all these offensive players that we want to draft later, you actually get to draft them later because once defensive players start
Wow.
coming off the board, it's like now these offensive players go a couple rounds later and you might be able to swoop on some gold a little bit later.
Now, do you have like a success story, whether it's you or somebody who took your advice, where it was like maybe like a last decision call or something? Maybe you made a call or somebody took your advice and it worked real good in their favor?
So if this was the week that helped me, I would say blow up a little bit to where
Nice.
like um this is when I started the fantasy football consultations and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Started Patreon. That's where, kind of everything's at. And I'm working so hard to get people to sign up for $1,
Yeah.
because like it's still now it's taboo for people to join a fantasy football community, like pay money for advice, like things like that. A
Mhm.
lot of things are included, but at the end of the day, I feel like a lot of people they sign up so they could get advice, and then when the season's over, they cancel, and the next season they come back and they do it again. So they are paying for advice, and stuff like that. And this was the week in I was in it was when Herbert was a rookie.
Mhm.
And he's going in to play the Saints on Monday Night Football. And like everybody who came, I was taking such a huge stance on Herbert because it was like Saints had 3 of their 4 DBs, starting DBs were out, and Herbert was just throwing the ball like crazy. And like just all these stars were like aligning. And I
Yeah.
was like, Herbert's going to throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. And I was like, and Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Hunter Henry, they're all going to get a touchdown. Like, watch,
Yeah.
watch. And every time a person asked me a QB question, I was like, okay, start these QBs. But I was like, go look in your waiver wire. If Herbert's there, pick him up and start him over both of those guys
Wow.
right there. And like, there was one person who like, he signed up for $1 And like I was giving everybody, like whatever my equivalent of $50 service is right now. I
Yeah.
was giving them that for $1 because I really wanted people to stay on forever and raise and bump up their plans and like everything. Like it was like I needed this business to succeed,
Nice. Yeah.
And so this guy's asking me, he's like, man, like who do I start at, a Tom Brady or somebody else? And I was like, man, it's Tom Brady for sure. But I was like, dude, you have to go pick up Herbert like
Yeah.
right now. Like pick him up right now and start him over Tom Brady. And he was like, bro, like what the fuck? Like why
Yeah.
why? And I
Yeah.
was like, man, I swear to God, man, like just do it. I'm telling you. Like Herbert's going to be like the top QB like on the week this year. Like all the stars are aligning, and like if you don't get him now, he's going to be on the waiver wire next week and
Mhm.
everybody's going to want him. So I was like, now's the only chance you can get him. And like he's someone who like I got it right, and like he legit bumped up to the $50 plan
Wow.
like after that. And like there was like a whole bunch of other people who signed up because of that. And so like it was Herbert, man.
Yeah.
Herbert did it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. He didn't throw for 300 yards, but he threw 4 touchdowns, and Keenan Allen got 2 touchdowns, and Mike Williams got one, and Hunter Henry got one. So I was like, I was
Wow.
so right on like all around on this call.
Now, Herbert was a good call for you. Now, do you have a favorite football player of all time or even a fantasy player of all time?
Man, favorite fantasy player of all time. It's crazy because it's like a toss up for me right now between
Hmm.
like Breeze and Mahomes.
Hmm.
Like those would be like, I mean, I won so many championships with Breeze in his 5,000 yard seasons, like over the years. And like even Patrick Mahomes, I had big stance on him in 2018 when his first year starting, and I won 3 championships that year, like because of it. And at that time, that was the most that I'd ever won in one year. So it's just like
Yeah.
an insane year. But I would say Patrick Willis for IDP. That's like because of IDP. I wouldn't even care
Mhm.
about him outside of that. And then I would say Frank Gore for sure.
Nice. Where do you see the future of fantasy football heading?
To the moon, man,
Yeah.
really, because every single year it gets more popular. There's more people doing content now than ever. There's more leagues that are starting, and like I feel like when people start playing, and like a bunch of people, let's say, started playing in 2020, it's like now those people, they're opening Pandora's box,
Hmm.
and they're becoming a little bit more degenerate about it because like it's easier to find leagues, now, and a lot of people are starting low stakes money leagues. And so like that's something I really, really started this year, was like starting a lot of leagues where I'm not even playing in them, I'm just commissioning them. And like I have so many years of like experience doing it that like so many people come in and they're paying me a commissioner fee to do this, and they all know that, up front.
Yeah.
And like especially with dynasty, like it's super hard to like get in a league that's like not going to end because of having a shitty commissioner. And so and I found like, and these degenerates have found me.
Nice. Where do you see? Well, what are your thoughts on the new rules this year for the NFL and where the direction I feel the NFL is heading?
Like the kickoff rules.
Kickoff rules, and what's the one? The hip tackling?
Yeah, and seeing that, I mean, there's a lot of people who aren't going to like the rules that like protect players
Yeah.
a little bit more. And so like I want these guys to be able to last more than a couple years and not
Yeah.
take a hit or two that may like legit end their career way sooner than it should have been. So I'm fine with all those rules, but yeah, it's going to change it. It's only going to make it to where there's more, initially there's more penalties, and
Hmm.
then like eventually offense, like I mean, these running backs and wide receivers, like, are just gonna like break off of some of these tackles,
Yeah.
because of it. So I mean, it's probably gonna lead to more like offensive, just good things happen offensively. For the kickoffs, I'm super interested to see how it's all gonna work out, but can almost guarantee there's gonna be more kick return yards this year than any year before.
Hmm.
And like kick returns, like that's like one of the most exciting like things of the game. So it was kind of really whack how it was like eliminated,
Yeah.
after, I mean, they moved I don't know if it was 5 or 10 yards that they move them closer, but it's like every kick is like just a touchback. Like, why even have the kick return at that point? Just start everybody at the 25 or
Yeah.
whatever it is. So it's crazy that the XFL has to do these weird ass things, and then the
Hmm.
NFL, they say, oh, that actually looks decent. Let's figure out a way to make our own version of that. So I like that they're evolving. It's going to be very interesting to see how that impacts like fantasy football. For the
Yeah.
NFL, going to equal a lot more exciting plays.
And then going away from fantasy football, when I was looking on your channel doing some research, I saw you were playing it live. What are your thoughts on college football, the game?
I like it. I mean, I haven't. It's been so many years
Yeah,
since I played it, but it's fun. It's exactly like I remember it. The one
nice.
thing that I really hate though is like how you can only either play online with your friends in an unranked game, or it's a ranked game, and there's
Hmm.
no in between because it's
Yeah.
like everybody only plays with the best team, so it's like you have to play with one of the best teams to be able to like match up. So that's probably my only gripe with just playing online in general.
And then going back to game day, you said you're watching all 9 games at once. What's like your format like? Like,
So multiple screens.
yeah.
That's really what's going on. Like just on my computer, I've got 2 screens like set up, and then I have another TV, and then I'm thinking about getting another like
Wow.
screen. So just to have like 4 screens, like because I'm gonna be streaming, and then having all the games up like at once as well. So yeah, that's what it's gonna kind of be. It's a shitload of screens and just having the games everywhere. And it's really hard to keep up with everything, but I also have red zone on like as well.
Yeah.
And so like red zone's the one that all is like the constant you keep going back to. Because even if you missed a touchdown when it happened, red zone, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes later, they'll show the touchdown again. So kind of seeing everything twice, or if I miss it once, seeing it on red zone helps me retain a lot of the information that's like happening in all these games at once.
And then you talked about it earlier as we're wrapping up. Tell me about that Patreon you have.
So it's 420crew.com.
Mhm.
I have a lot of different links on where it goes, but that's like the one I like promoting because that one I actually had to pay for a bunch for that one,
Nice.
420crew.com. That's our whole brand that we're building. And it's really about just combining the 420 world and the fantasy football world. And
Mhm.
you can actually join for free there. So if you want to like join for free just so you can like get into leagues or see what leagues I'm hosting, maybe get notifications when the shows are starting, like that's why you could join for free. You join for $5, you start getting access to different things. Like when the season starts, there's going to be like posts where you have to be at least a $5 member. You'll be able to get your question answered, before the live streams, or you'll be answered first on the live streams, whatever. But
Yeah.
just getting more access to like me, and as you go higher, like even once you get to like the all access tier, I feel like that's like one of the most popular now. It's the $25 tier. You get access to my business cell phone, and like I'm literally answering text messages like while I'm live, like on my
Wow.
shows. If
Yeah.
there's someone who's at work and they can't watch live,
Yeah.
pay for the level of access, you'll like for sure get it. And a lot of people, they on Tuesdays they're asking me, who do I do waivers this week? And then it's like Wednesday, Thursday, who do I start? And then like they'll still ask me Thursday, Friday, Saturday, who do
Yeah.
I start? Who do I start? What should I change? And so like I feel like if nothing else, it's like someone to bounce ideas off of
Nice.
for like all of your leagues.
Nice. I didn't even know until probably like last year you had a Patreon, but after this, I'll sign up for you. But I like to
Oh
end
yeah.
every interview the same. But before I do, I send you a roster I had. I've had this league going with all my buddies, a lot of wrestlers. Who would you say my keeper should be? I think I have a definite answer, but I want to lock it in with you. And then after this, I'm sending this to all my buddies right after this.
Here we go. And you said you're one keeper?
Yeah, one keeper.
Okay. So I do like Derrick Henry in
Okay.
there, and I do like Bijan like in
Okay.
there. That's kind of tough, like already, because those are like I feel like the hitters, like right there. If you can only keep one, I'm definitely keeping Bijan.
Okay.
He's gonna get drafted the highest out of everybody. So when it's a keeper league, I want to keep the guy that's going to be the hardest for me to redraft.
Mm,
And Bijan would be the hardest guy to redraft out of all these guys. There's almost no guarantee that you'd even get him. He could go in the top 5, or if it was just a regular draft, single QB, he's going top 6.
nice.
Like could he go after that? Yeah, but like more than likely him, Brees and CMC, like all 3 of those guys are going somewhere in like the top 6, top 7.
I appreciate you as always. Now, I'm always so grateful for you. I tell you that every year, but even when I do the wrestlers, I like to end every interview the same. The day that you're officially ready, you're done with the channel giving advice. I know we have a long time to go, but the day it officially happens, what do you want yours and the brand you built? What do you want your legacy to be remembered for?
I want to be remembered for someone who works hard, works harder than everybody else, answers more one-on-one questions, than anybody else, and just someone who never sold out. You know, like someone who like I felt like I've turned down a lot of opportunities just to make sure to keep doing what I'm doing. And like there's been a lot of things that have probably hurt me in the long run doing what I'm doing, but like it's making me learn and adjust things. And I feel like sometimes I make things a little bit harder on myself, but when things actually work out, they work out way better that way.
Well, I want to thank you so much for doing this, and I want to thank you for everything you've done for me. What, these 4 or 5 years now, man?
Hell yeah. Appreciate you for being there, because everyone who's been around for like, I mean, shit, since COVID, since 2020, when all this started, I remember and I take it seriously. And like, just, you coming around asking questions, I need that. Like, if there wasn't you plus everybody else, like, like, would I even still be doing this? So yeah, people like you who've been around these years, man, I appreciate it.
I appreciate that. And thank you everybody for watching this episode. I'm Coach C, and this was Best for Business.